Your deepest skills can form your deepest ruts. I had to actually give up these skill sets in order to embrace new skill sets to reach my full potential. So I had to give these two pillars of success really in my life. I had to give these things up in order to become the next version of myself. And that is not comfortable. When you start hiring people to do the things that you're great at, you then have to learn new skills such as welcome to another episode of the Bill Hauser podcast, soon to be renamed as The Price is Right. Today, we're going to be talking about why your deepest skills can form your deepest ruts, why this is the most important concept, one of the most, top 5 most important concepts I've struggled with, but also have had breakthroughs with as an entrepreneur, as an individual. I think the most challenging thing about this is sometimes the things that you're the best at are not necessarily the things that are best for you to do in order to grow in your life or your business, right? So one of the natural born skills I was blessed with was the ability to do sales. It was the only thing I'd ever done in business in my life as an employee where the marketplace talked back to me and said, "Hey, Bill, you're really damn good at this," right? Everything else I had tried prior to that didn't work. I wrote a book called Warrior 180. I tried selling it online. Sucked at marketing, knew nothing about marketing. No one bought the book. Spent 8 months writing it. I had a band for years of my life. I was lead singer in a band, and we didn't really ever blow up because I didn't know how to market. I didn't know how to do so many things. I didn't succeed in the business aspect of music. I didn't succeed when I was working construction for my dad. I didn't succeed when I went into the insurance industry as an underwriter in insurance. I actually had my boss tell me basically like, "You're no good. You're not good at doing underwriting because I just hated it so much because it was such a granular task that allowed no creativity and blah 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 blah." So fast forward to when I started my company SMB team, in the first year, and this is how most people succeed in business, I went all in on my skills, right? Fast forward to when I started the company, I got really good at Google Ads. This is something I learned when I was at yellowpages.com in their digital division. And I was selling basically, resale Google Ads that, basically Yellow Pages would resell Google Ads. All of it was automated. It wasn't like customized, but I learned Google Ads through the process of selling it through yellowpages.com and micromanaging my clients' campaigns to the best of my ability. And I learned sales at yellowpages.com as well. And it was, again, the first time that the market spoke to me, the business world spoke to me and said, "Hey, Bill, you're really good at digital marketing. You're really good at sales." When I first tried digital marketing, I sucked at it. But once I learned Google Ads, I learned that I love that mix of data and creativity in Google Ads. Bottom line is this. My first year in business, I found my 2 gifts as an employee, which was Google Ads and sales, and that's all I did for my first 18 to 24 months in SMB team. I went all in on my sales abilities, and I went all in on my Google Ads management abilities, right? And that got me to over $1.4 million in revenue in just my second year in business, just going all in on my skill sets, right? But at a point in time, I had to divorce those skill sets, right? I had to no longer hang my hat on how good I was at one-on-one sales or how good I was at Google Ads management or managing individual Google Ads campaigns. And I had to actually give up these skill sets in order to embrace new skill sets to reach my full potential. And the same thing happened to me when I was in a band. I had to actually give up my abilities, in music to actually pursue business. I had to give up something I was good at to learn the business world, right? And, in any transformation, you're going to see something being given up, right? And you can't get something bigger in your life if you're not willing to give something up just as big, right? And oftentimes, we want it all, right? We're sold this myth that we can just have everything we want and and we don't necessarily have to give anything up on the path to getting what we want. And that's just not the case. You have to give things up just as big as what you want to get, if not bigger. And for me, the most scary thing I gave up initially when I started my business was my Google Ads abilities. So when I started S&B team, I was building all of my clients' Google Ads campaigns. I was building all of their landing pages myself. I had a couple freelancers that helped me, but it was primarily me building everything, right? And at some point, I had to hire, it's probably within 6 to 9 months of me starting the company, I had to hire my first employee, right? Because I was signing up a lot of clients, and I had to train that employee on how to do something that I was good at, right? I had to give up. Again, the concept we're talking about is sometimes your deepest skills form your deepest ruts, right? I had to give up a skill of mine, Google Ads creation, Google Ads management and landing page creation, to my first employee, right? And, that was great. And that then gave me more time to then focus on growing the business, all the business things that I didn't have time to focus on because I was spending so much time doing client work, right? Till the point where, I hired my first salesperson, right? And I had to train that salesperson on how I was doing one-on-one sales, right? And that was scary because that was my greatest skill set. That was the thing that gave me the most validation as my, in my skills as an entrepreneur, was my sales abilities, right? So to give that up, right, was really scary. But imagine if I never gave that up. Imagine if I was still building everyone's Google Ads campaigns personally in my company. Imagine if I was still the one doing every single one-on-one sales consultation for my company, right? I wouldn't have been able to grow into the skill sets that I now have, which are very different from building Google campaigns and doing sales, right? So I had to give these two pillars of success really in my life. I had to give these things up in order to become the next version of myself. And that is not comfortable. It's not comfortable to have to go into foreign territory. It's not comfortable to have to learn new skill sets and go back to that beginner's mindset and that blank slate where I no longer know everything about the thing, right? When I hired my first salesperson, when I hired my first person to do the client work, that was scary as shit, right? Because those are my only skills. So now what the hell else am I going to do with my time? What am I going to do with my day now that I can't spend my time doing the things that I'm skilled at, right? And I believe that the reason that most businesses flatline is because the owner is unwilling to give up things they're good at to let others be good at those things, right? If you're unwilling to let your team be way smarter than you and way better than you at the things that you think you're so good at, then you're just going to cap yourself out. You're going to become the bottleneck in your business. You're not going to be able to grow. You're going to wonder why your business's revenues stay the same year over year over year. And that's 99% of businesses. If you look at the Small Business Association, SBA stats, you'll realize that like 99% of businesses never grow. 99% of businesses are like, I don't think it's 99, but I think it's closer to like 90% are like 1 to 2 employee businesses. And that's just a reflection of the fear of most business owners of giving up the things they're good at and building a team that can do those same things with or without the owner's time, right? And it's just a completely different skill set, right? When you start hiring people to do the things that you're great at, you then have to learn new skills such as hiring. Very different skill set, right? So you have to learn how to create job ads, how to do poaching, how to reach out to people to get responses from them on LinkedIn, how to filter them through a 2, 3, or 4 round interview process, right? How to sell them on your vision in the interview process, right? How to gain both technical information from your applicant, but also core value information from your applicant so that you know they can do the job, but you also know that they're going to fit into your culture as a company, right? That's a skill set I didn't have. I didn't know how to hire. When I first hired people, my first employees were, do you breathe? Do you want to work with a crazy person like me? And have you ever worked at like a marketing agency before? That was my level of vetting, really, because I was so insecure. Why would anyone believe in little old me starting this new business from scratch, right? And I had someone quit like 1,000 employee company to become one of my first 3 employees, right? When they told me they resigned, I was probably more scared than them, right? I know they were scared because they were joining this startup, right? But I was probably more scared than them because I didn't believe in myself yet, right? I didn't believe, why would they trust me? Why would they believe in me? And now that pressure's on me to not fail, right? So I had to learn the skill of hiring when I gave up the skill of doing Google ads, and the skill of doing sales myself. I had to learn the skill of management, right? I had to learn the skill of how to hold people accountable to standards, how to set key performance indicators for people, how to make sure that we had a recurring pulse of staying in check with every employee through the usage of one-on-ones, through the usage of weekly L10 meetings, executive meetings, etc. I didn't know any of this crap when I started SMB team, right? But I had to learn those skills with the time freedom I gave myself from divorcing myself from the skills that otherwise could have trapped me, right? And then there became a point where, okay, I was still doing all of our company's finance. I was personally running every person's credit card. If somebody's credit card failed, it was Bill Hauser, it was me that logged into QuickBooks and retried their credit card or contacted them personally, right? Like I was our billing department, right? That became actually, something that I, maintained for a long period of time, and I had to give that up as well, right? That was scary. I had to hire someone to be in charge of that, right? And then it just scales out of control to where it's like, hiring an entire sales team, right? Right now, as a company, it's crazy to even say this. We have 5 plus 4 plus 12. So we have I don't know, maybe we probably have over 20 sales people. And we have, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sales ops / managers. So we have, close to 30 people in just doing sales for our company. We have, I don't know, maybe 15 people doing our internal marketing, right? If you add that together, that's 40 to 45 people doing sales and marketing for us, right? I used to be the one who wrote all of our email headlines for our email marketing. I used to be the person who wrote all of our emails to get people to show up for webinars or download lead magnets of ours. I used to be the one who created all the videos for all of our ads, right? Now, I have Andy who leads the charge of that, at my business partner. It's crazy. These things that I thought I would never, ever have given up, right? I've had to give up all of these things to the point where every single 6 to 9 months, I'm delegating myself out of a job, right? I'm entering my week in unknown foreign territory, which is why I always say, the rate of identity crises that you have as an entrepreneur is a positive KPI, right? It's a positive measurement of success. If you're not having identity crises, you're not growing fast enough, right? If you're not entering your week thinking, what the hell am I going to do this week? I've never encountered this before. That means that you're in comfort territory. That it means you're doing all the same stuff that you did last year, and that means you're not growing. And when you're not growing, you're dying. Why? Just look at inflation. Just look at the whole concept of entropy, right? If you, basically entropy is a universal principle that says things that are left unattended, they basically decay over time, right? If I don't work out for 10 years straight, my body is going to decay over time, right? If I don't mow my grass for 10 years straight, my backyard is going to go into disorder, right? If I don't tend to the most important relationships in my life, if I never get dinner with my wife for 10 years straight, of course things are going to go into disorder, right? The things you don't repetitively put effort into will gradually go into disorder, right? And that's our default mode, right? If you look at anything in nature, right? Let's say that you have a deck, in your house, in your backyard of your house, and you have a deck, right? If you don't manage that deck for 10 years, that deck is going to decay over time, right? If you don't manage a house for 100 years, that house is going to decay over time. The elements are going to eat at it, right? That same exact thing happens when you tolerate the same thing day in and day out, day after day, week after week, right? That complacency kicks in, and that's what creates burnout. Burnout is a form of entropy, right? Burnout is a reflection of you not encountering new stimuli, right? This is why, like, if you're not getting better at what you're doing, then you're never going to grow within the company that you work in, if you're an employee, or the company that you own, right? If you don't get better at what you do, right? If your viewpoint of success is management, your viewpoint is, oh, I just want to manage things, I just want to make sure problems don't happen, that's all defense, right? That's not offense. That's not success, right? You're not going to get promoted, or you're not going to see breakthrough results just managing problem avoidance, right? Oh, I just want less problems in my life. No, you want more problems at a higher frequency, but more importantly, you want them to be new problems, right? Your rate of new problems is a sign that you're going into foreign territory, right? There are so many exciting, this is what entrepreneurship is problems. If you can't solve problems, if you have a negative relationship to problems, you'll never be an entrepreneur. You'll never be successful, right? So your deepest skills form your deepest ruts. To me, this is the biggest mistake I think a lot of business owners make, is they disguise their deepest skills as their reason to keep doing the same thing year after year after year after year and not improving at it, right? And it's just a travesty, because it means it's an underutilized life, right? And you can apply this to any area of your life. Like, you know, if I told myself what I was doing now for my health versus what I was doing last year for my health, I shake my head now at what I did just a year ago for my health, right? Because the rate of improvement I've seen in my health has been exponential in terms of my VO2 max, and primarily I train for cardio because I race dirt bikes. So I have seen exponential changes in my health, but I had to encounter new problems to get there, and I had to give up my deepest skills, right? I'll give you an example of this. F45, right? If you've ever followed me on Instagram over the last couple of years, there was literally a time stretch for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I don't know, maybe like 7 years straight, where my only workout routine was primarily going to F45 group fitness classes, right? Now, these F40, now that's an accomplishment in and of itself, right? If you were to do something like that, just go to a group fitness class 6 days a week, every single week, no fail, never miss classes, you're going to see exponential growth in your health, right? And I was sold that group fitness classes is the only way to have health success, right? The problem is a new mentor entered my life, a riding coach that I have, who is a coach of mine on motocross racing, who's a professional racer. And I showed him my cardio data, because I track my heart rate using a Polar heart rate strap and the Polar, I think it's called the Polar Flow app. So I track my heart rate, and I showed him my heart rate data for F45 classes, and he wasn't that impressed. He was like, wow, it looks like you're really only doing, they call it F45 because it's 45-minute workouts, but it actually ended up being 35 minutes of actual zone 2 and above training, right? With stretching before, and how they show you all the workouts before you work out, blah, blah, blah. So it actually ended up being 35 minutes of workout, right? And he said, if you want to be in the best shape of your life cardio-wise and out-endure everyone that you race against, you have to change your training routine, right? Instead of doing 35 minutes of workout every single day, and instead of doing non-targeted muscle group workout, you're going to have to redesign your cardio routine, and you're going to have to redesign your lifting routine, right? And you're going to have to merge these things together. Now, I do over 60 to 65 minutes of zone 3 cardio 2 times a week, which, if you don't know what that is, zone 3 is, pretty damn hard. That's like an assault bike. If you've ever seen one of the bikes that, it's not an elliptical, it's like a stationary cycle, but your arms move as well. I do an hour of an assault bike at zone 3 cardio. That's like 135 beats a minute average heart rate for a 65 minutes straight 2 times a week. On top of that, I do interval training, max heart rate training, 8 intervals followed by specific muscle group training, high intensity workouts myself. And I've created this custom routine that I now do, which includes stretching, a little bit of carb loading before some of my hard workouts, blah, 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 blah. Now, just a year ago, okay, I felt dialed in. I had a groove. I felt like I was so in the zone with my fitness routine. New information entered my life, right? And most times when new information enters my life or your life, what do? We criticize it. We go, yeah, that's great, but I'm good, right? This new information is great, but I don't want to change, right? So we criticize the new information, right? Remember this, anytime someone criticizes something, they're saying more about themselves than they're saying about the thing they're criticizing, right? They're saying, why are they criticizing this information? It's because they can't relate to it, right? So I was criticizing, every other workout routine other than my F45 habit, right? And I learned a new skill set, and it was really uncomfortable, right? I had new problems. I had to give up my deepest skill because my deepest skill is forming my deepest rut, right? And what I realized was part of the reason I gave up dirt bike racing years ago was because I just wasn't at cardio shape enough. I wasn't in good enough cardio shape. There's this one race where my wife Emily and I went to, and I did my first, you have two motos in dirt bike racing, Moto 1, Moto 2, and they take the average of these two scores, right? And then that's your overall finish, right? And I did my first race, and I got like first place or something, and it was like a local race, not a big deal. And I got back to the truck, and I basically said, we have to go home. I'm not having fun. This is like a chore. I don't like this sport anymore. And that was 4 years ago. It was after I had an ACL replacement. My first, one of my first or second races back. And I just didn't know any of this cardio stuff, right? So I gave up dirt bike racing for a couple of years because I didn't know a piece of information. And this is something I love. It's like one of my most fun hobbies that I do outside of work. And I gave it up for years just because I didn't have the right information. I thought I didn't like the sport just because it was hard. The sport is hard. No, the reason I gave up the sport is because I didn't know what type of cardio training it took to be at a level where I could actually have fun going full speed, right? So now knowing that information, I was able to craft a cardio plan. And what do you think happened when I quadrupled my cardio output, right? Do you think it was all happy, slappy smiles right off the bat? No, it was the complete opposite, okay? When you do zone 5, interval cardio training, it puts your body into panic mode, right? When you're doing zone 3 cardio multiple times a week for over an hour, and on weekends, you're burning an average of 2,600 active calories each day when you're riding dirt bikes because of how crazy the heart rate training is. That's 2,600 exercise calories. Keep in mind, when I went to F45, I would burn an average of 450 calories from an F45 workout. When I race dirt bikes, one day of dirt bike riding, 8 sessions or so, I'll burn 2,600 exercise calories from one day of dirt bike riding, right? One day, on top of my baseline calorie burning just for surviving and breathing and, living, which is called your basal metabolic rate. Again, this is all crap I didn't know much about a couple of years ago. So once I found out this information, I started tracking my heart rate, all this stuff, which all came from a coach, by the way, this riding coach. I realized why I fell out of love with the sport, and it was my lack of cardio training. And once I amped up my cardio training, again, it was not happy, slappy, sunshine, rainbows, happiness. When you do training like this, your central nervous system takes a big hit. Your central nervous system, I believe it's also called your parasympathetic nervous system, is like the regulator of your whole body, right? So when you exert this much cardio finesse, your central nervous system takes a radical hit, and it results in crazy levels of fatigue, right? Just for a few weeks as your VO2 max kind of changes, and your body kind of adjusts to this high cardio threshold, and it is bad. I mean, there were weeks when I amped up my cardio where I was like, will I ever get better from this? I feel so low energy. My body is not recovering. these are weeks where I burn 6,000 to 7,000 calories in my exercises throughout the week, which is an average of 900 to 1,000 calories burned per day per exercise, right? And weeks like that, I would feel so fatigued, right? But now I can't not exercise like that. My body's oxygenation has adjusted to this. My VO2 max is at a elite athlete level right now. I think it's like a 61 right now. And because of that, my entire energy levels throughout the week are at an all-time high because my blood is more oxygenated. My resting heart rate is now anywhere between 44 and 46 beats per minute, which is like basically I'm dead throughout the day. My heart's like beating so slow because of all the high cardio demands I put on myself. So it took a little bit of pain up front, i.e. new problems. It took discomfort up front, learning all the new exercise routines. I felt like a dumbass in the beginning when I changed my, 7 years of comfortable F45 workouts, and I had to change that to a new exercise routine, right? That was all not comfortable. But the payoff is now I can do the sport that I love, right? Whenever I want. I never get fatigued. I never get what's called arm pump, which is where your arms kind of tense up from holding on to the handlebars, all the vibration and shaking. I don't get arm pump anymore. My heart rate when I ride is still at an average 170 beats a minute, but because my recovery time now, when I get down, like my heart rate variability and my recovery time is like, boom, as soon as I get off the track, my heart rate goes back down to a low level rapidly, whereas before I'd be fatigued all day. So my whole long-winded kind of what I'm trying to share in this is that I didn't know all of this just a year ago, okay? Just a year ago, I was in my little comfortable exercise routine thinking I knew what the right plan was for me, doing my little F45 workouts. I hired a coach. This coach told me to start tracking my heart rate using a H10 heart rate monitor from Polar. I start doing this. I start receiving data from my F45 workouts. I start seeing new information. Holy crap, this isn't actually as intense of a workout as I thought it was. And that then led to a complete redesign of my fitness habits, right? Which then led to a complete redesign of my nutrition habits, right? I used to do intermittent fasting, right? Intermittent fasting, I wouldn't eat until 11 a.m. every single morning. I was sold on this. This is another 7 or 8 year deepest skill formed my deepest ruts thing, right? I was very good at not eating until 11 a.m. I did it for 7 years. I lost a lot of weight doing this, right? I had so much. Sometimes success teaches us the wrong things, right? Sometimes when we receive success from something, we then receive data that, this thing I did that was successful for me, right? I have to only do this for the rest of my life, right? But there's a million and one ways to get the same levels of success. Just because you got success doing one thing one way doesn't mean there's not 10 other ways to get the same result in half the time, right? Or even a better result, right? So we get trapped by our successes just as much as we get trapped by our scar tissue and our failures, right? So this was like a huge thing for me. I had to give up, my comfort around intermittent fasting. And I had to start eating things in the morning. Why? Because now instead of burning 450 calories during my little F45 workout, I'm burning 1,000 to 1,500 calories some mornings during my workouts. Days that I ride dirt bikes, again, I'm burning 2,600 calories, and sometimes, I'll burn 2,600 by 1 p.m. if I do like a half day and I crunch all my riding sessions in the morning. If I don't eat before I ride that morning, if I don't eat before I exercise and burn 1,500 calories, I'm dead for the rest of the day. Yeah, you can force your way through any level of fatigue, but it's going to catch up to you later in the day. It's going to catch up to you 2 p.m. or whatever. So I had to adjust my nutrition habits to eat more calories in the morning, more calories the night before, so that my body could withstand the higher cardio threshold. So what I'm trying to show is this chain effect of habit change that occurred just from one new piece of information, right? And just from the open-mindedness to know that to know what I didn't know, right? Once we go into the unknown, we can be paralyzed when we're in the unknown. But once you gravitate, the unknown is basically things you don't know that you don't know. Okay? So when I was doing F45 workouts, I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know that I could have been training 1,000 calorie workouts a day. I didn't know I could have been doing zone 3 cardio for 65 minutes multiple times a week. I didn't know what I didn't know, right? So the biggest graduation, which creates wisdom, is going from unknown to known unknowns. This is where you become what's called problem aware, right? As soon as you become problem aware in habit formation science, you are 10 times more likely to form a habit, right? If I am unknown on something, if I don't know what I don't know on something, it's almost impossible for me to become problem aware, right? If I graduate to known unknown, where I now know what I don't know, I now know I have a knowledge deficiency in some area, right? Now I'm problem aware. Hey, I have a deficiency. I now know that other people are doing way more cardio training than me. I now know that information. I now know that the cardio training I was doing wasn't cutting it. As soon as I now knew what I didn't know, that's where the shift happens in habit formation, right? Oftentimes in business, we don't know what we don't know, right? So we just operate on our known knowns, right? Our known knowns are the traps. The traps of our life are known knowns, right? So I know that if I hop on the phone, let's say I get a call for someone who wants to sign up with my business. I know if I hop on that phone call, I'm going to close that person at a higher rate on average than just giving it to a salesperson on my team, right? Why? Because I'm the owner, blah, 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 right? Whatever reasons. I'm skilled at it. I know that. Therefore, if I'm operating on known knowns, what does my decision making become, right? If I only operate on known knowns, it's like, all right, cool, I'm just going to keep doing the things I know work, right? No innovation, no big change. I'm just going to keep doing the stuff I know works, right? I'm going to hop on that phone and close that client, right? I'm going to do the sales call myself, right? I know if I do the client work myself in certain areas, this isn't true in other areas, but in certain areas, maybe I can do it a little bit better, right? I don't know if that's true anymore, though, just because I haven't done the client work in so long, but maybe there was a point in time, where that was true, and quite frankly, I think our team is so much better than me at all the facets of client work, but you know what I'm saying. Most people, if they get started in business for being good at something and then getting paid for that thing, it's easy to operate on known knowns. It's easy to just say, hey, I'm going to keep doing the work for the client. I'm going to keep doing the sales calls for the client, right? Because I know it works. I'm operating in known knowns. The unknown in that situation is I didn't know that I didn't know that someone else could be closing these clients just as good as me without me being on the phone. I didn't know someone could do the client work better than me. So therefore I operated on known knowns, right? So sometimes our deepest skills form our deepest ruts, right? You are in a deep skill right now. There's something you're doing that you're good at right now. And you don't even know that it's put you into a rut in your life. There's something right now you are deeply skilled at, and you've now trapped yourself because of that skill, right? And the most scary thing to me, because of how many shifts I've had in my life of boneheaded realizations, like how the hell didn't I see that, right? The scariest thing to me is not knowing which skill is currently trapping me. Not knowing what thing I feel good and comfortable at that's actually trapping my progress, trapping my full potential. If you want to say, like, what should be one of your biggest fears in life? It should be the things you don't know that are trapping you. You're drowning and you don't even know it. You're limiting yourself and you don't even know it, right? And to escape that, something new has to enter, right? You're going to have to do something new, something differently, and produce a better result from that thing, right? So, and is it going to be comfortable in the beginning? No, it's not going to be comfortable in the beginning. Is that a reason to not do it? No, it's not a reason to not do it. That's a reason to do it. Because, by the way, when you did anything that you're currently skilled at, it was uncomfortable at first, right? So I'll give you an example on this. Although I ended up being good at sales as one of the 20 things I failed at in business, I ended up being good at that, right? Was it comfortable? Was my first call a breeze? Was it so easy? Absolutely not. The first in-person sales consultation I ever had, because I was selling contractors locally in the Philadelphia area when I was a Yellow Pages rep, my first in-person consultation, I will never forget it. I went down Yelp.com, okay? Yelp, the review website. I go down Yelp and I start calling contractors who are listed in the top 10 of Yelp in the Philadelphia area, okay? I call this contractor. It's one of my 100 dials for the day, right? Call this contractor, get this contractor on the line, and basically say, do you want to meet up to talk about how we can potentially put a plan together to send you 10 remodeling jobs a month, right? That was like one of the scripts that we use. Yeah, I'd be happy to see that, da-da-da-da. Sit down with the wife of the contractor, okay? Contractor didn't even show up. I show up to this meeting so over-prepared, right? I show up to this meeting like I had 15 to 20 pages printed out about this person's contractor business, right? I was so scared. I got to this Starbucks in Manayunk, Pennsylvania, which is right, an outskirt of Philly. I get to this Starbucks probably 30 minutes before the meeting even started. I sat in this, 2016 Dodge, little rinky-dink car that I had. And I sit in the car, and I am so nervous for this consultation, right? I go in maybe like 15 minutes before. I clear a part of the coffee table, the center table area in the Starbucks that I was going to meet with this person in. I am sweating profusely. I mean, I was wearing a white button-up shirt. I kept my arms down the entire time because even before the meeting started, my armpits were drenched with sweat because I was so scared, right? 40 minutes into the meeting, I'm thinking to myself, holy hell, this person must know how scared I am, right? And meeting ends. I ask them if they're going to move forward with us, and they say no. So the worst thing that could have happened. They rejected me, right? It was damn scary, right? So that was me learning something I eventually would become skilled at, right? Or realize it was a natural skill of mine. And it was introduced with failure, a ton of negative emotion, a ton of fear, which resulted in over preparation in so many areas, right, of this experience, right? So my reason in sharing that is like, in order to learn your next deepest skill, it's going to require fear. It's going to require adversity. It's not going to be smooth sailing. It's not going to be, oh yeah, everything went well for me to learn my deepest skill, right? And to learn a new deepest skill, it's going to require a little bit of pain, confusion, feeling like a fish out of water, right? It was a similar feeling for me when I, hired my first employee, right? It was profusely scary, right? It was a similar feeling for me when, I hired my first salesperson, right? The fear is the entry point to you learning a new skill, right? Which is why the book Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway is a book I brought up before. Such a good book because it's not about being fearless. It's about acting in spite of your fears, right? It's not the person who is... You'll never see a successful entrepreneur say they're fearless, right? Because it's just not true. If you are a successful entrepreneur, you are in growth mode constantly, personally. You're constantly growing your skill sets, right? When you're in growth mode, you are in fear because you are in foreign territory. You're experiencing newness. You're not in the comfort circle of all the known knowns, all the things you feel so good at, right? And you are uncomfortable. My first webinar, which ended up being another great skill set of mine, was, doing, webinar based sales and stuff like that. Gosh, that was another one that was so scary. My first webinars, it's so funny how over preparation presents itself every time you're scared, right? My first webinar, I spent literally an entire week preparing for a 2-hour webinar, right? It was so scary to me. I didn't want to flop. I didn't want to freeze up. I didn't want to screw up. So I'd spend all week preparing for a 2-hour webinar, right? Now I've learned my skills in this area. I'm confident in this area. Next week, we have a 3-day event that we're going to be holding for lawyers. And this 3-day event, I'm literally going to show up, zero preparation at all, right? I mean, I don't have to prepare anymore. It's in my blood. It's in my DNA. It's a known. It's a comfort zone thing, right? But if you were to tell me 4 or 5 years ago that I'd be presenting in front of 1,000 registered attorneys at a 3-day boot camp, on a Tony Robbins style stage with, hundreds and hundreds of attorneys with their cameras on and, an event MC and, 9 or 10 speakers speaking at the event, I would have told you you're crazy, right? Because I just didn't have that skill set, right? But through one challenge, one innovation after another, you find yourself in this new normal, right? It's kind of like the I think it's like the frogs in a pot thing, where like if you put frogs in like a pot of water and then you slightly like turn up the heat, they won't feel the heat turn up to the point where it kills them, and they'll just die, and they won't even try to escape, because you become desensitized to that new temperature, right? And as you raise the temperature in your life, you want to become desensitized to that new temperature, right? But then you got to understand, once you become desensitized to that new temperature, it's time to give it up. It's time to grow. It's time to go to that next level. Because if you don't, you're not going to grow in that area, right? So this growth mindset is so counterintuitive. Most people you talk to will say, find your gift and just do your gift forever, for eternity, right? Follow your passion. And sometimes if your passion traps you, then you better become passionate about something else, right? You better edit and augment and innovate your passion, right? Because if your passion results in you trapping yourself in something you're so passionate about, but your whole other life doesn't grow because of this passion, right? Then your passion actually ends up limiting you. And at some point, you gotta innovate and change your passion over time if you want to grow. Now, all of this assumes you want to grow in your life, you want to grow in your business. If you don't want to grow, if you just want last year to be the same as this year and this year to be the same as the next year, and you just want every year to be a repeat of the prior year, you don't have to do any of this crap. I'm only saying if you want every facet of your life to change, you're going to have to change, right? If nothing changes, nothing changes, right? And what that means to me is, if nothing changes in your life, if you don't change anything with how you're doing things or what you're doing, then no outcome in your life is going to change. So don't expect yourself to make more money if you didn't change what you're doing around making money. Don't expect your fitness to change, your outcome around fitness, lose weight, etc. Don't expect that to change if your input didn't change, right? If you're not changing your exercise or your nutrition habits, right? Don't expect any outcome or positive thing to change in your life just through the law of attraction, right? Crossing your fingers in a meditative pose. I visualize it. I visualize it. I visualize it. I hope. I see this in reality. Doesn't matter if your actions don't align with this positive self-talk, right? So I got to go eat some lunch. I'm hungry. I'll see you guys next week. And let me know if there's any topics you want me to go deeper into in a future episode. And remember to keep flexing in the mirror 24/7, 365, and to call yourself the champ in the first person. All right, peace. If you found value in this podcast, here's one way I can help your firm right now. First, you can get our new book, Law Firm Growth Accelerator. It's everything we've learned over 10 plus years helping lawyers build thriving, profitable firms. The strategies that you'll get in this book work for any practice area and any revenue level. You can get the audiobook and ebook 100% free, or just cover the shipping and we'll send you the physical copy to you in addition to the audio and ebook. Go to smbteam.com/book to get your copy.